Okay, welcome to VO Simplified. Oh, I bet you hold that. Shoot, I have something here. I gotta change this. I have an echo here. I'll bet you I have an echo. I'll bet you I have an echo. And now I'm not gonna have an echo. All right, so that should be right now. Oh, hold it. Now I don't have an echo. All right. When I go back and forth between Zoom, there's a way to set it up so that I can just click one button. But I go back and forth. Zoom needs one setting, and my broadcast software for doing all the YouTube lives needs another. And so VO Simplified I do have two configurations. I just have to flip it over. But if I don't remember, then yeah, echo gone. Thank you. That's really helpful, and that's my fault. But at least this time I recognized it immediately and realized, because I had rebooted my machine and I was on Zoom previously, then it was going to come up with my Zoom configuration. And that's the thing. The tech stuff sometimes is easy, but you have to figure it out. And once you know it, then cool, you know it. But that doesn't mean that it's going to always be obvious. It's going to be something that I know every time off the top of my head. And that just comes up. And the more you do, the easier it gets, the more you know. Life is simple, but there's always something going on in the background. And it's an ever-changing world. But remember, this is foundational stuff. Your performance is going to trump all this stuff. You want your performance is the thing you'll work on forever, and the tech stuff should fade into the background. And today we're going to talk about a concept that many of you are not going to need right away, but it's where the world is going, and that's that we're going to talk a little bit about multicast and a couple ideas. There's not one way to do this. I don't have a perfect way of doing it, but I really have some suggestions that'll help you quite a bit when you want to do it. And that's that you're going to have two narrators, and but you could have this with voiceover as well. Two voiceovers, two narrators, and you're either in different locations or you have to record at different times. And it's just a royal pain when that happens, especially if you're not in the same location. What Lisa and I do, so my wife will get these dual voice things. We'll sit down in the same studio, and it's really easy for us. It's easier for me. We record back and forth our parts, and we can even leave them on the same track, and that totally works. If you're coming from two different studios, though, that barely works, because number one, the studios sound different. So I need different processing on the beginning of them versus different processing. I take that back. I need different processing after the fact. I might need more noise reduction on one of them than the other. I may need more mouth reduction in one than the other. One, I need multiple sets of something. I may have a different EQ on it, depending on the room. It doesn't happen often, but it could happen. But the rooms might need to be matched, and I'll use RX. RX has a really, the RX Advanced has a really good tool for doing some of that ambience match and EQ match, and I can make two rooms sound pretty much the same, and then therefore no one will notice it. But there is this one major hassle that everybody will deal with, whether you're doing voiceover or audiobooks, and that's the fact that if you have two people recording, how are you going to do that to where it makes some type of sense? Because if you ever put together, I've done this multiple times, you put together a 10-hour book with two voices, and especially if they go back and forth, what a nightmare for the person, because usually someone will volunteer and say, hey, I'll do that. I'll handle the putting together the two voices. By the way, usually they're novices. Like, they don't realize what they just signed up for. So the rights holder contacts them and says, hey, can you do this with two voices? I want one male and one female voice. And if you do that, understand, it's way more work. It's not just double. It's 4 times as much effort to do that than it is to just deal with your own voice. You have volume issues, that two voices are going to come in at different volume levels. That's going to happen all the time. You have two rooms, and while either room can be great all by itself, very often they do not match, and so it's obvious that it's switched rooms as you go between the different lines. And then you have this whole thing of, yeah, what does the first person do? Do I leave a space? Because I've done this about 4 different ways. And I'm going to talk about some of the different things because you might be on a different DAW than I'm on. Matter of fact, I mean, odds are half the people watching this are on a different DAW. So we're gonna talk concepts, and then I will say some of the more advanced DAWs make this 10 times easier than others. And so, hey, if you're going to do a lot of it, get one of the easier DAWs. I mean, for 79 bucks, you have Studio One, and you can do all this stuff, and it's easy. And I'll show you a couple examples. So right now, if it comes in, let me change the colors here. We'll make narrator number 2 green and narrator number 1 blue. And I guess I'm going to hide this track for right now. We're not going to use this track right now. So instead of removing it, I will just hide it. Now, I have 2 tracks here. And let's make even bigger contrasting colors. I'll do a red, and this is going to be one voice, and this is the other. And the question is, if you have 2 tracks, if you do not do something to organize this up front, it just takes way more time than anybody ever thought. And then if you ever make a mistake, because one, like if you're putting it together, you don't know what their line is. And unless you stop and listen as you're going through every one, it's easy to have one thing be off just a touch, especially depending on how someone records it. So I'm going to talk about if you can do this up front, life is easy. Not easy. Easier. Okay? And that's definitely the case. And it'll give you some ideas, because you're going to possibly need a variation of this on your tool if you don't have Studio One. If you have Studio One, there's some easy things, because I'll show you why. So here's the big picture concept. If I have 2 voices that are going to go back and forth, and first off, if I could record them all on one track because I can sit in the same room, that's the easy button. All right, I can go back and forth. It'd be just like a stage performance where 2 performers are sitting next to each other, and assuming you can either put them on their own channel if you have multiple mics, but then there's some bleed, or my wife and I will sit there and do this stuff. And most of the time we're working off one mic, and we're looking at it, and we can see it, and we know what's going on, and therefore it's just easy to go back and forth, because it'd be not that much different than one person recording. But today the scenario is, what do you do when you're not in the same location? Because that's a lot more common. Being in the same location is easy for us, but it's not easy for most. And there are times where I've done things where Lisa's in her studio, I record my part in mine up here. I'm on the 2nd floor. Her studio is on the 1st floor, and so if we're working, the 2 rooms are both good, but hers is better. I made sure of that, and she does more of that voicing stuff. A lot of times I will just go down to her studio. We'll sit there side by side. We record with a mic in between us. It works great. Okay. But that's not the scenario we're talking about today. So if you have questions, be sure to throw them in the chat there so that I see all the questions. I'm looking there for comments. Yeah. All right. So here's how I would do it. If I have my way, one of the features that's available that most people don't know about is there's this thing called audio input follows selection. Audio input follows selection. What does that mean? In the more advanced DAWs that have multiple tracks, you get to pick which track you're going to record on. And those tracks are what they call armed. That means when I press record, that track will record. You can have 2 tracks at once. If let me blank this out here. I'm going to switch over to my normal macro toolbar, and I'm going to now clear that track. So if I want here, I don't do this usually, I can be recording at 2 tracks on once. I don't normally do that. That doesn't make sense most of the time, but I could. So I can tell it that I want to record on 1 track, 2 tracks. I can record on any specific track that I want. But what you're going to want, here's the problem that we have. I'm voice 1. Somebody else is going to record voice 2. And then we're going to put them all together. Yeah, fine. But how much time do they leave between them? If I have my way, person A, let me back up. There's a gentleman that I know. Let's see, what's his name? I can see his face. That's doing this on a gaming channel, and he's doing this on a gaming channel where there are 8 voices, 7 voices, and he's got the main character, and then there are 6 other actors that are doing their parts. So in his case, here's what he does. He actually records. He's got this. He actually has 8 of them. I guess let me set up a couple others. I'll take this one. I will duplicate that track, and I will duplicate this track so I can show 4 of them. So now I have 2, 3, 4, okay? And I'll change their colors so that we can talk about them. Now, let's do that. I already have a blue. We'll make a green one, and we'll make another color one. And people don't realize colors can help for a set of reasons. All right, now I have 4 colors. And here's what he's doing on his case, because it made sense for him. He is going ahead and he is recording all voice. So he has the master script that says voice 1. Today is Monday. Well, actually, it's Tuesday, isn't it? Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. And then the next person says tomorrow's Wednesday, and the next person says tomorrow's Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Each person says what day of the week it is. And what he's doing is he's going through just like this. He's recording. Today is Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. Today is Thursday. And today is Friday. That's essentially what he's doing. Now, he wants this one, and this one to be other voices, other voice actors, okay? So he's not putting them all on one, but what he wants is he wants to have some basic timing that he knows how long it took for each of them to say their lines, so that the space that he has, he can put things together easier because he has some sense of it. And literally, he's just reading the whole script down, just like he was doing a single character, a single narrator script. And then people are going to come in, and then they're going to be able to, if they want, listen to him. But also they can record just their part, and he knows exactly where their part goes in the script because he has it. Because here's what he's really doing. He is recording his part, and I'm going to do it again and show exactly this concept here. And by doing this, because the real hassle later is putting those other voices in where they belong, and you have hours worth of audio, and if you get one of them off, it can be a nightmare. So here's what he's doing. Studio One has a feature called Audio Input Follows Selection. What does that mean? I have this track selected. Let's go ahead and now I have my 4 tracks, made them all bigger for you. When I click this one, it's going to switch and it's going to record on this track. When I click here, it's going to record on track 3, track 4, and so he can do this. Today is Monday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Click, it's Wednesday. Click, it's Thursday. And then he can go back, and now he has his parts. It's going to talk about, and next week it's this. And the week after, this voice is going to do this. And then a month from now, somebody's going to be doing that. And here's another character. And then it's back to his character doing something. And then this character says something. And then he's tracking and he's going through. And he has essentially the ability to go through and build out the whole thing while he's voicing it. And he just says their lines. Now, their line is not going to be exactly the length that he said it. Their delivery might be fast or slow or whatever. But this space here is pretty close to what he's going to need. And when he's done, he'll get theirs. He drops them in below, drags it up because he can do this little thing. Okay, if this were the part, he can drag this up, hold down one key, and now he's brought up that part. And he can color code them if he chooses to. There's a bunch. Well, I should just do that. I mean, if you're really doing this stuff, what you would end up doing is doing I'll just do it. I've selected all these red ones here, and I'm actually going to take this and colorize them so that they are a specific color. It won't make sense. There's a reason that you'll do that. And then when he does this, he can see what each of the colors are, and he can do that with it, and I can do that for a whole track at once. Change the color, and then that way he can then build this and put this eventually onto one track. So each person can come in and now record their own. He can send them this project and they can record their own part, and they can even, if they choose to, listen to the other character so that they can respond directly, as opposed to, because have you ever done multicast, you get into this whole weird thing. If my wife says something and then I say something and we're in different rooms and I haven't heard what she said, if she's the primary, my response could be, she said something super quick, she's super excited, and I'm supposed to respond to that and act. And obviously it needs to sound like we're in the same room. Using this technique, you can do this cool thing in the good DAWs, and you can go ahead right here and do the convert to zip, and you can zip up the whole everything that's in this project and send it to somebody else. They can open it on their copy, and then they can go ahead and listen to what you said. They can respond, and they can respond 100% on their own track, and then overwrite these things with their part. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Everything else you get into a bunch of complexity, but you can manage it. It's a lot harder, but you can manage it. So this is the easy way to do it. All right, let me back out some of that stuff. So I would do undo, 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 and we're gonna undo. I'm just gonna keep on going, undoing all that stuff, and get back. All right, so there's. I'm gonna put that back. This is back at the beginning. If you had parts that you are going to bring in, and they were all, so you had something like this. They've sent you their 3 parts. Let me record something. Let me give a better example. Today is Tuesday. I'll record something here. Today is Wednesday. Recording something. Today is Thursday. I should have this track muted, and I recorded something. And then now, this is the line that goes right here. I need to somehow make sure that I stop and either delete something or leave a space and record the next section if there was a character, or colorize it, depending on your DAW. We could colorize this little, I could colorize any little element here. I could go right here, right click, go ahead right there, click on this, do a double click, and then I can change this and say this is where I'm going to add the next character's voice. I can do them with colors. And if this person belongs there, then I can go ahead and copy this one in. And when I copy that one in, let me make it a color so that it is actually a color. It is red there. Yep. That'll work. And I take this one, I can drag it, and I can drop it, and it'll move the yellow over for me if I have ripple edit on. If not, it'll just overwrite it. That's fine. That would work there. If I have ripple edit on, then I can take it, and I can drag it and drop it, and then it'll move my yellow over, and I'll probably just delete that because that means I've done it. And then I'm going to move on to the next place. And so you can color code things. You can leave a space. You either have to leave a space or you can color code things. Otherwise, you get into this whole nightmare of I have a stream and I can't see where it belongs, and life gets miserable. All right? Because you're doing it in 2 locations. You have 2 totally different sets of people working on something, and what you can do is make your life easier. If someone records a master track, if the other person has big long sections, you can do an abbreviated situation where you just leave a space, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a few seconds in there, instead of recording. If your partner had 2 minutes of audio, that's one thing. If they have 10 seconds of audio, that's another. So you have to make a choice, and none of it's perfect, okay? But if you get spaces in there where you can tell where this audio is going to go, so I'm going to turn this. So you have that space there, and then you had recorded your next part here. Something, I should have this track muted, and I recorded something. Oh, no, blah, 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 blah. And then here's my next line. Then it's easy to go ahead and take this little thing and slip it in there. And if it needs to be adjusted, we can adjust it. You can use the tools that are in my macro toolbar if you're on Studio One, or you want a DAW that has ripple edit, so you can put it in there and have everything move over for you automatically, okay? So just know, I can't tell someone how to do all this stuff 100%. I know how I would do it if I'm working on a book. Oh, the gentleman's name is Steve. And Steve, the way he's doing it is really clever, though. He's actually recording the whole thing, the whole script, and recording everybody else's part. But he's recording them on separate tracks based on which character it is. And because I had set up a macro for him so that instead of, I had just shown moving track to track to track to track, but he can do this. So he can be recording. And then here's my next line. And I'm recording on this track. And then I want to go to track number 4, and I'm recording on this track. And then this character number 2, I'm recording on this. And he has it all set up on keyboard shortcuts so that he can end up on track 1 with that. And now he's on track 3 with that. And now he's on track 4 with the next character. And as he's narrating, as the different characters are coming up, he's just switching. So when he's done, I'll zoom out, he ends up with this kind of thing. And it's left space because he narrated it, best that he thought that they would do it, and he ends up with multiple tracks here. And then if they go ahead and take and just do their part, they can go ahead and find their parts, go to them, hear how he voiced the section before their part. So then if you have this one, this person leading into this one, you have a coherent situation going back and forth. Now, there is no absolute, because if there's more than two people, then it gets super complicated, which is why he's recording everything in his case. But if you only have two people, you may just go back and forth, and I can click on one and it arms it, and so it's going to record there. I can click on another, it's armed, and automatically, while it's recording, will switch and record on the different track as you're going back and forth. And then I have a macro, and you could assign keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so let's see if there's any simple things here. It is, let's see, cannot see my comments. I don't know why, Colette. I see your comments. So I'm not sure. Although it is possible let's see, that one's live there. What I'm going to do is refresh this. I'm going to refresh this. I'm going to refresh this over here. I don't know if I refresh that. Yeah. If you're on YouTube, then everybody, you should see all the comments. Okay. So that's best I know. On YouTube, the comments should show up. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. All right. And if not, I'm not sure. Dun, dun, dun. Do you think collaboration future is viable method for remote dual? Never tried it. Musicians are doing it. I'll have to explore that. So Chris, that's a great question. If somebody has Studio One Plus, then there is the ability, since musicians are collaborating, but see, they're not collaborating in real time. But yes, you could pass this back and forth easily there. But just note, most people don't realize, even in Studio One Artist, you do have the ability, if one person has done their part, to convert to zip, and then you can take that and you can zip it, and when you do that, it'll give you the ability to compress it, and then you can throw that and pass that back and forth. But it does depend on what you're doing. I have not tried doing it, and that's, so yeah, so I can't try it. So someone's just, I'm going to highlight this. Can't comment on my desktop. Weird. No, it's not. I'll bet on your desktop you're not logged into YouTube as yourself. You, on your phone, you're automatically logged in, I believe, so it recognizes who you are. But many people just open up YouTube and they're not logged in as anybody. And so if you're not logged in, then it doesn't know who you are. Since you can go to take the link and be there unlogged in and watch the show, that's why you can't comment on your desktop. You're not logged into to YouTube, is my guess. Okay, that's how it happened for so much. I couldn't figure that out for a long time. Why some people told me they couldn't comment from, but then when they went to their phone, it worked. And some of it is the phone automatically, the phone app remembers who you are, automatically seems to log you in. And so yeah, that works. So wasn't something that I figured out. I can't remember who we were talking about it. They tried it on their phone and it worked. They were trying on the desktop, they didn't. It gave them a message. Then they logged in on the desktop. Now they can do it on both. Okay, so you can subscribe on both, and it works. So to revert, Studio One does have the ability for musicians to collaborate on this stuff, where you don't, it still is passing that file back and forth. It's not real-time collaboration in the last time I checked. I'll have to check on that. I'll tell you next time. But that's we'll ask that in the Studio One group, because some people aren't using Studio One. If you record it in anything and you record the whole thing, you'll get the exact timing right, and then you can, most things have good tools to bring them together. And if everyone's doing it on their own track, in Studio One, it's all drag and drop. You could move things between tracks with just dragging and dropping and get it all working really well. But there is time. Then you still have to listen to the transitions. You have to make sure there's enough time between them. There's a bunch of little details that nobody thinks about. And as soon as you start putting it all together, you'll notice, hey, gripe, we need to leave a little more space. Now, if person A recorded well and recorded the whole thing, they have set a standard and a feel. And if everyone else follows that, then it's definitely easier. If they didn't, well, then that's a different thing. And you will notice it is not as simple as it looks, and everyone's looking for solutions. And I'm not even convinced that I have the best solution yet. I keep going back and forth, but being able to instantly record on this one while the recorder's running, I can just click, or I've set up buttons to do it, or keyboard shortcuts to do it. It will allow you to switch between the tracks and have a master one that has a track for each performer. So this wouldn't say raw 2, but it'd be performer 2, performer 3, performer 4. A lot of people. If you've never done this before, do not do one where you have more than 2 performers. You can do whatever you want. I recommend you do not do more than 2 performers, because I'll tell you what, guarantee you it's way more work than what you expected. And if you volunteer to do it on a royalty share one, then you're crazy, because the amount of workload goes up so much if you want it to sound right, because the timing and the details and the volumes, and somebody comes in and one day records a little quieter, it just sounds different. If you do it, you can adjust your own. If you have to micromanage somebody else's and they're inconsistent, and if you haven't worked with them before, don't do more than 2 people. 2 people at the max while you're doing this stuff the first time you do it. After you've been doing it a while, then you can add another performer if appropriate, and you can manage it. But if you haven't managed 2, do not go for more than that. And understand, if it takes you 2 hours to record and do all your stuff, plan on 4 hours. It's going to be a lot more than whatever you think. All right, let me look at here at the and do you have a video describing your AV setup for making these videos, camera, software? No. All I can tell you is I use OBS, and in OBS, I also have multiple monitors. So I have 2 32-inch 4K monitors, and then another 20, I don't know, 27, maybe it's probably a 27-inch that's set for high def, so that I can see what things look like at different things. But without 2 monitors, it's a tough gig. So you need at least 2 monitors for the hardware, OBS, and then there's a nice steep learning curve, but anybody can do it, but you have to be dedicated to learning a bunch of this software. If you want to do Riverside is great for doing some of this stuff. It can do some great stuff with multi-screens. I use that for tutorials at points. Riverside, and there's there's another one. Somebody in the comments talk about what if you know, there's another one. It's not Stream Deck, but but maybe it is. There's another one. Anyway, StreamYard, that's it. StreamYard and Riverside both allow you to do video, but I like Riverside the way it does video, so both of you can collaborate. As far as cameras, I've just always used Logitech, some of their higher end. I've got the Logitech Brio, and some of the real high-end Logitechs are really nice for that. They do some great things. And then, of course, I'm always recording the actual audio onto my DAW so that I can process it well. When I'm doing live stuff, no. But I also have my interface can do some of this stuff. It gets quite complicated. That's a subject way beyond voiceover stuff, because once you add video, your complexity goes up by a factor of 4 because of all the stuff that comes up. And everyone will tell you, I'm a tech guy. They see me doing this and the different stuff. And with the Heller things, I do a live session with Heller, and I do a Ask Us Anything. And once we added a third guest, so it was me and Johnny, that's pretty easy. We had the third one. All of a sudden, we have this variable that people are coming in with Bluetooth headphones, and they don't realize there's a lag. And sometimes we do a sound check, and then they come in the next day and their setup is different. So I sound check the day before and everything's working right. They come in that day, their setup is different because they did something in between. Oh, but I had a Zoom session in between, and okay. So complexity goes up with every guest you have, and once you add video, plan on some complexity. But you can do it, and you can also, StreamYard is the one that does it pretty easy. And if you don't have any tech background, go get StreamYard. That'll work great, and it works well. And then I wanted more flexibility. I haven't taken advantage of some of the things, but I can do things like this where I go and I zoom in and I zoom out and that kind of thing. I wanted to be able to do that, and there's a bunch of other details that I wanted to have control of over time. But even that little zoom in, zoom out thing required me to learn something and install something and make sure I can figure it right, and just way more complexity than I'd like to talk about. Okay. So yeah, nothing on that yet. I mean, someday I might do something, but I still feel like I don't know anything about the video stuff. And I do a lot of it, but I keep it the same, and I am learning more. If you watch the Heller thing, and you'll see one day where I have this thing in the back of my head that when I get to implement it, you'll go, oh, he's definitely upgraded his game there. All right, other questions that have to do with this sort of thing in terms of doing multicast stuff. Any other subjects that anybody wants to discuss, let me know. That's super helpful. And yeah, I've got all that. So that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. All right. Let me think. If there's anything else that I remember, there were other subjects that came up in the middle of the week, but I didn't put them. I just knew that this would take a while to deal with. Now, if you're on one of the simpler DAWs, when you start putting this stuff together, some of it's not can't just do all the drag and drop and ripple edit type things. There are some ways to integrate this stuff that are a little easier. If somebody has, just as my macro toolbar has a replace, which allows it to expand and contract automatically, and just does some things that make this whole process easier. So depending on what you're doing, you have a bunch of other tools that are available. And I have to say, you're putting together multicasts and you're using one of the simple DAWs, free things and simple ones. Oh, people promote this. Yeah, you only want one track. The interesting thing about the good DAWs are you can treat them as a one track, single track, simple. And then when you need the complexity, you can go ahead and have the extra tracks and the extra complexity when you need it, or when you grow into needing that. And while today you don't, it's the same foundation. Everything that you learn on a single track here applies to multiple tracks. I shouldn't say everything. 98% of what you learn on a single track applies to the multiple tracks. So I recommend, hey, you don't have to use all the features of a multi-track DAW, but if you have one, you will, over time, if you stay in the business, end up taking advantage of things that you didn't even know were helpful because they're not there in the simplest tools. So yeah, most tools, some of the simple ones, I can't just click and have it start recording on a different track automatically with a single click once it's already running. That's just not possible in some of the DAWs, but it is easy. It's one checkbox. As long as I have this checkbox there, then I can do that kind of thing, and that's so people don't even know it's there. Okay, all right. Will I be able to audition and make a sample and beginner demo? So that's Lisa. Yeah, most people can. First off, auditioning, you should be doing it already. What you do is, I think, because you even have my templates, if I remember right. And if you have my templates, then yeah, Zoom, you already have enough tools to do it. And for audiobooks anyway, it's easy to audition. You can go on ACX and you could audition this afternoon. And you can practice by auditioning on a bunch of stuff you don't necessarily want or care about, but there's scripts there. There's a story. You find some sort of story you like, and you can go ahead and put together a great audition, or an audition that's just okay, and then you can do it again and refine it and get it to where it's a great audition. So, hey, I'm learning to play pickleball. You want to know how to learn to play pickleball? You play pickleball badly. I know how to do that. And then you continue to refine little aspects of it and work on little parts of it. And, I got all these holes in my game so that I'm good at one thing and I'm not so good at the other. And what's going to happen? I've figured out a plan to fill in all my little holes. Over time, you will fill in all the little holes. And if you're doing a specific project, that's the best way to learn your DAW. That's the best way to learn your tools, is go find an audition on ACX, even if you don't want the book. You can always turn it down later and say, oops, I'm sorry, when I auditioned, hey, I'm too busy now. Too busy might mean you're too busy learning the next little thing but don't. So Lisa, this was directed at you. Next week, let's see, today's Tuesday. Please come back to next week's session and tell us that you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 15 auditions. Doesn't matter. And so what if they're not great? I don't care. They may be great, but you're going to learn so much by just doing it. Okay. Now, if I'm going to do a complicated, something that's more complicated, and I'm going to go through and take a voiceover and I'm going to say VO demo. Okay, well, that's kind of going to be a different animal when I'm doing that. What's going to happen there is my voiceover demo is going to be a combination of 6 or 8 or 10 spots, and I'm going to probably also have music, and I might have background stuff. It might sound like I'm in the park, or it may sound like I'm in an office building. But what I'm going to do is end up with a situation where I have a lot of parts put together. And so I'm going to have the first 10 seconds is going to be one thing, and then the second 10 seconds is going to be another. Maybe it's 8 seconds. So I might have an 8-second spot where I sell Dove bars, and a 10-second where I sell pizza. And so and then pizza is going to have, see, I have my music track here. I'm going to put music in there. I'm going to drag music right into that, and it's going to play behind or combine with my voiceover track. So a voiceover demo can get complicated, but hey, start with one. All you need is 10 seconds. 10 seconds is really about the size of every spot you will have on most voiceover demos. So if you're doing audiobooks, go get something off ACX and just find something. Who cares? But do it to the best of your ability and then refine it and send it in. Don't not send it in. Send it in, because that's a part of it too. Then you learn how ACX works. Then you learn how to submit demos. So do not just do it and throw it away, although you could. Okay. Um, so yeah, audition by next week and let us know how you do on that. Okay. All right. Chris, is Zoom audio quality high enough for those to remote narrator? No. No. Zoom is not high enough quality to do that. You're a lot better off having them recording a good. First off, if they're really cheap, have them get Studio One Prime, the free version. If they're new to it, have them get Studio One Demo. It doesn't cost anything, and then they have something that at least they can record on something, and they get some fidelity. If you ever see, I should pull in. I don't have a good example. Zoom cuts off about 2/3 of the spectrum. There's a bunch of stuff it does. Now, can it be set up? They have a way that will do musicians, but every time I've messed with it, it's still not right. It's still, so they do have some settings you can do these days that in theory are going to get you closer, but doesn't make sense. Okay. And if you have Zoom, you could have Zoom going so you can see each other, and each of you can be recording in your DAW of choice on both ends. You can do that. Okay. Because I can have like DAW running. I have Studio One running right here, and I have a whole set of complex software that is running. And as far as loopback, first off, this is taking directly off my mic, and then the other program is also taking off my mic. I use OBS for this stuff. So you can have more than one running off a decent interface at the same time, and then they could, if I were talking with somebody else, they could hear me, I could hear them. We'd have to both have headphones on, so no monitors are on, and that would work. Okay, so I could use Zoom to listen to each other and go back and forth, but I'd want them on their own track, me on mine, and then have them send it to you. Remember, every DAW has the ability to send a project, and I always have to look at it here. It's convert to, where's convert? Oh, convert to is right there, and it's a zip file. And then it'll zip it all up, and it has one file, and you can send it to somebody else, and then that will work. So Zoom's quality by itself would not be, it just won't be enough. And Lisa, yeah, first off, so you're saying the Advanced Studio One course, yeah, it has all sorts of good stuff for doing voiceover demos, but do a simple one first. Don't wait until you like, hey, I could go to, we all know this person. They go to college, and then they get done with, they get a degree, they get a bachelor's degree. And then since their parents are footing the bill, they go and they get their next degree. And then they figure out a way, and they go and they get their master's degree, and then their doctorate degree. I don't know the order. They go, and then they're just a student for a long time. And hey, cool, if that's what you want to do. But in this business, Getting a master's degree before you get your demo out there does not make any sense. Go out and get a book and start auditioning for books next week, because then you can start working on your voicing and your recording and your performing, and then you can get some experience and then fill in blanks, as opposed to, do you need to know everything about your DAW? I have people that are recording and are putting out a book within the first couple of days of switching to, doing a specific, starting brand new all over with Studio One, whether they're brand new or whether they're use some other DAW. If they use another DAW, most of it's easier, except for they'll get stuck on some little detail that the other DAW did it one way and a new tool will do it in another way. And so they can get stuck on that, but still, you can change DAWs in a long weekend. And if somebody's new, it's almost easier at some point, but same thing. Most of it's attitude. Get a real project. Do it with a real project. I could be, so I'll go back. I'm selfish. Pickleball is easier for me to talk about because I'm in the middle of learning that. I've been playing about 7 months, 8 months. I'm below average in the big scheme of things, but I'm working at it. I can go watch all the videos I want on playing pickleball, and I have watched a lot of them. But that doesn't make me a good pickleball player. It makes me know what could happen or the way it should happen. Then I go out and play, and it's like, yeah, but I can't do any of that stuff that those other people can do. She's hitting this thing a certain way, and I see it and go, oh, the way she hits it is the way I want to hit it. But then I have to go practice that 40 times or 60 times, or in a lot of cases, 4,000 times to get it. And maybe it's 40,000 times in order to have the right thing working. And it's the same in this business. Right now, if you've been through the basic Studio One course, you have plenty to start doing a demo and just get it done, get the voicing done. And then, I need to know how to do the next baby step. And then you add that on top of what you already know. But the more experience you get doing it, then the sooner you get there and get it done. All right. So I hope you next week tell us that you did an audition. I mean, that's up to you, but I would do it. If anyone knows Maria McCann, if you haven't, on my channel that you're watching here, go just do a search for Maria. And she did 13 audiobooks in her first 3 months. From the time I met her to the time she had 13 books done, she mastered them. She produced them. She got them out the door. 13 of them. And these were not trivial pamphlet books that were 1 hour in length. 8 hours. There was one that was 12 hours. There was one that was 7 hours. I think the shortest one was 7 hours. And she had a couple that were up in the 12, 13 hour range. They averaged over 10 hours a piece among those 13 books. And she's a great actor. So she had that part going for her. And then she just horsed on the other stuff and totally knocked it out of the park. And so go find that. It's in my podcast with my son, Donnie, Red Baarns Audio something. Anyway, just search for Maria on my channel and you'll get her. And it's just so inspiring. You won't believe what people get done. And because she was in the middle of doing, she just learned a boatload, way more than if she just watched videos and kind of did it. And she's driven. She wanted to do it. And most of it was because she wanted to do it. When she had a few things, she'd call me, send me a message. Hey, I'm stuck on this one thing. Cool. 5 minutes later, she's off and running again. All right. So it's really about doing more. If I want to be good at pickleball, if you want to be good at basketball, pickleball, tennis, any of these things, we have to play a lot. We have to drill a lot, practice. You have to practice. I used to play drums for a living. You have to practice for hundreds of hours or thousands of hours, in my case, to get to an above average level. It's, how many thousands of hours I spent. Crazy as a young guy. I mean, it's just nuts. And today I can't play because I don't sit down and do it anymore. I know what it is, and that's a perfect example. Man, I know a crazy amount about music. I was around some of the best musicians in LA when I was a young guy. And I can brag about the people I know and the sessions I've sat in on and been around, and it's crazy. But that doesn't make me a great musician today because I don't do enough of it, okay? Just because I know it doesn't mean I can do it. And that's one of those things. You must keep practicing. So go practice, all right? So, yes, Crystal, I got to highlight that. Hold on. This is good. Crystal says, you'll be amazed as to how quickly you pick it up, especially when you have nothing else to fall back on. It's not that hard. Crystal, but you were already a tech wizard. You were a tech maven, correct? You knew everything about tech, if I remember, and I'm teasing. Crystal is a wonderful person who I don't think she knew anything about tech before, or when she started this, but she picked it up and she did a lot. And because she did a lot, that ended up working. And so she's given us the ha 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 ha, because I know the truth. I know that she didn't, well, definitely not a tech person at all, but she did a lot. Okay. And because she did a lot, then that's what caused it all to really work. And that's what will work for you too. Okay. That's really one of the things, one of the biggest takeaways from doing all this stuff is this: watching me do tech, me watching somebody else do tech gives me ideas, but I don't retain it until I practice it. I don't retain it. I don't, I've done a lot, but without practicing it, I won't retain it. Nobody does. And so when you don't stress over it. You're normal. I know you're special in other ways. I've said that to 4,000 times. Okay. Um, yeah, nothing here to be, so absolutely nothing here to be intimidated of. Okay. But people are sometimes, because they see others. I'm so comfortable with these tools because I have worked in them thousands of hours. Then they don't know that you can click and drag this and zoom in. They don't know that there's a control down here that will change everything all at once. They just don't know those things, and they're afraid to click on something, because if they click on the wrong thing, the whole world can disappear, it seems like, and until you've done some things, yeah. But you got to do it. Make your mistakes. That's life. Don't stress over it. Okay. All right. Well, so there's definitely nothing to be intimidated. First, the number of people who have who are like Maria, meaning great actor, a great performer, somebody dedicated to enhancing her performance, who learned all the fundamentals of the tech quickly, and now does not have to worry about that, because she's off now as major publishers, she's working with major publishers. She paid her dues quickly, did a ton, and is just killing it. It's just amazing what she's accomplished in her first couple of years of this business. It's wild. Okay. So, yeah, we all have to practice more. It's not just you. So don't, by the way, you know, I couldn't remember. I had set up this little thing for somebody to switch between tracks and all, and I had set up a little macro toolbar to do it. And then when I did that, then I had to go ahead and say, hey, how did I do that? Because I had done this all at one point. By the way, see these little things. This allows me to take and select which track is active. And that's what this was about. So this is allowing me to do that. And based on that, and the fact that it automatically turns on the recorder on that track, I combine that. But I couldn't remember. Someone asked me this question last week. If you saw last week's show, I couldn't remember the details about this, because I had done it a couple months ago. And then once you do it, if you don't do it, it's like, how did I do that? How did I have that? I had to go refresh my memory. And here's a fact that anybody who's done any education absolutely knows. It is 10 times easier to relearn something than it is to learn it the first time. So is it easy to learn something the first time? Not always, because I have to combine, I'll read about it, watch some video, listen to it, try to figure it out, and then practice. And then if you don't do it for a while, when you come back, you can cut through 90% of that and just go do some practicing and a little bit of figuring out. And it's like, oh, yeah, now I remember that. Oh, yeah, I remember that. Our brains do really well relearning something, and that's just the way it goes. So don't stress over it. Nobody gets this stuff just because they watch. I don't get it when I watch other people. I have to go try it myself. Do more, do more, do more, do more, and this will fade to the background. I guarantee you this. How many of you drive your car and you can eat at the same time? Some of you are bad people. Well, some of you are lawbreakers, where you have texted or you have talked on the phone, and there are many states where you're not even allowed to talk on the phone while you're holding it, and you've broken. And some of you have sped or speeded, or you went faster than the speed limit. You're lawbreakers. I wouldn't. Well, I've done that a few times. Anyway, you can't be a great driver without driving a lot. And this is not news to anybody. So I'm encouraging you, don't let the tech stuff intimidate you. Find a mentor if you need to. There are plenty of courses, free stuff, lots of stuff. Just keep learning, but then get the tech out of the way and ignore it and work more on your performance. All right, let me check. Fine things, yeah. And anyway, I drive home from work, can't remember any of it. Yeah, so Steve is talking about the cool thing that happens. It happens to all of us that drive a lot or have driven a lot at different points in our life. You drive and you get home and you don't realize you have turned corners. A stoplight has come up and you've stopped at that stoplight, and you don't remember any of the actions required to stop your vehicle or to turn around a corner or to wait for some pedestrian to cross the street. I mean, you see it, you do it, and it's so ingrained because you've done it enough times. We just automatically do it, and that is a great thing. All right, so you guys have a fantastic day, and feed me whatever you want to see me talk about. Be sure to send me. I know someone had asked me to talk about gates and expanders, and I'll get to that. I didn't get to that today, but I will. Just remind me, okay? So send me a message before, or throw something in the comments here so I see it and I remember it. I get a lot of suggestions. I can't do them all at once, and I may not get to some question some week. That can happen, but be sure to ask them. Just be persistent, and then I'm happy to go over as much of that stuff as possible. And I have courses, vojumpstart.com. Somebody does not have to know about gates and compressors because I have all that set up in my course for people. And then when we do a final tuning session at the end, and I'll check and make sure it's right. But they don't have to know about that anymore. And I don't have to know how my car goes in reverse when I press the R button and the car goes backwards. And I still can be a good driver without knowing how the windows go up and down. I mean, there's a little motor in there, and it does some stuff, and my window goes down. When you press the little door lock, how does the door lock that's over on the passenger side lock? Well, there's a wire someplace that runs someplace, and it does it. All right. Do I need to know where the wire ran in my car in order to have the other window go down over on the other side of the car? I really don't. Do I care? I care that it works. I don't care how it does it. It's not core to me driving the car. So I want to be a good driver. I want to be a safe driver. I don't want anyone else to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. Knowing how the window is connected on the car is irrelevant to me other than it works. If it fails and I want to learn about it, cool, that's one thing. A lot of people learn stuff about audio that they're never going to use uh, beyond what they're doing in voiceover. And remember, the one variable that I always struggle with is if you haven't worked on music where you've been able to isolate 100 different things while you're combining things, there's just things you don't hear yet. And later you are going to hear a bunch of details. And it's something that I can't teach somebody quickly because I spent years and years and years doing this stuff. And there's just some things you cannot teach somebody because hearing is all internal and it takes a while, but you can do it. Anybody can do it. Go mix music for a little while. You'll learn crazy amounts and your ears will get better. But by then, if you just practice your voicing, you'll get it. You just need a minimal amount of tech. I don't need to know everything about how the car works to drive it well. You don't need to know everything about your DAW or gates or other things. You can have that stuff all set up for you. All right. Hope you have a fantastic day. Join us next week for the Heller Baarns Ask Us Anything. That's primarily audiobooks and publishers there, but you can ask anything you want. You could ask a tech question there. I'll take them. And then we'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same bat station here. So as always, you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you on the wires. Bye-bye.